5 more maritime mysteries. 1. The Sea Venture. The Sea Venture holds a significant place in both British colonial history and maritime law, as its wreck in 1609 would eventually lead to the permanent settlement of Bermuda. The vessel was part of a fleet sent by the Virginia Company to reinforce the Jamestown colony, which had been struggling to establish itself in the New World. Commanded by Admiral Sir George Somers and accompanied by Sir Thomas Gates, who was to become the new governor of Jamestown, the fleet carried settlers, supplies, and hope for the floundering colony. Built specifically for the transatlantic journey, the Sea Venture was a newly constructed ship, designed to carry a heavy load of settlers and goods. However, just 2 months into the voyage, the fleet encountered a monstrous hurricane in the Atlantic Ocean. For days, the Sea Venture battled the storm, with winds and waves battering the hull relentlessly. The ship began to leak as the crew worked tirelessly to pump out the water, but after 4 days, it became clear that the ship was doomed. In a fateful decision, Admiral Somers steered the vessel towards the faint outline of land. This land was Bermuda, then an uninhabited island chain known to sailors as the Isle of Devils, due to the dangerous reefs that surrounded it. Somers deliberately ran the ship aground on one of these reefs, hoping to save as many lives as possible. Remarkably, all 150 passengers and crew survived, making it to shore. The survivors spent 9 months on Bermuda, salvaging what they could from the wreck and using local cedar trees to construct 2 new ships, the Deliverance and the Patience. They continued their journey to Jamestown in 1610, where they found the colony in dire straits, with only 60 out of 500 settlers still alive. However, the supplies and manpower they brought helped to stabilize the colony, ensuring its survival. The wreck of the Sea Venture also led to the permanent settlement of Bermuda, as some of the passengers chose to remain on the island rather than continue to the New World. Theories. Navigational miscalculations. Some historians argue that the Sea Venture's wreck was due to the primitive navigational tools of the time. Without modern charts or accurate readings of their position, Somers may have misjudged the proximity of the reefs surrounding Bermuda. The ship may have been closer to land than Somers realized, and the decision to run aground was an act of desperation rather than strategy. A supernatural force in the Bermuda Triangle. Given the ship's location, some suggest the Sea Venture could be an early example of ships lost to the so-called Bermuda Triangle. While this theory is purely speculative, it has been cited by some proponents of paranormal and supernatural explanations for shipwrecks in this area. Structural weaknesses. While the Sea Venture was a relatively new ship, it is possible that flaws in its design or construction may have contributed to its demise. Ships of this era were often hastily built and could be prone to leaks, as was seen when the vessel began taking on water during the hurricane. Combined with the fierce storm, any structural weaknesses could have sealed the ship's fate. Legacy. The wreck of the Sea Venture laid the foundation for the colonization of Bermuda, which was officially claimed by the English crown in 1612. The story of the shipwreck became legendary, inspiring William Shakespeare's play The Tempest. Today, Bermuda remains a British overseas territory, and the wreck of the Sea Venture is seen as a pivotal event in the history of both Bermuda and North America. 2. The Tryal. The Tryal, a 300-ton East India Company ship, was wrecked in 1622 on what are now called Tryal Rocks, off the coast of Western Australia. The ship was under the command of Captain John Brooks, who was navigating through uncharted waters en route to the Spice Islands, now part of Indonesia. The Tryal carried a valuable cargo of silver and other goods meant for trade in the East Indies, as well as crew members and company officials. The voyage took a tragic turn when the Tryal struck an uncharted reef during the night. The ship sank quickly, and only a small number of the crew, including Captain Brooks, survived the disaster. The survivors made their way to the island of Java in a longboat, where they informed the East India Company of the wreck. However, the loss of the Tryal went largely uninvestigated at the time, and it wasn't until centuries later that the significance of the wreck as the first European shipwreck in Australian waters was fully understood. Theories. Navigational challenges. At the time of the wreck, much of Australia's coastline was uncharted, and navigational tools were rudimentary. It is likely that Captain Brooks miscalculated the ship's position and unknowingly sailed into dangerous waters. Without accurate maps, the crew would have had little warning of the reefs ahead, leading to the ship's sudden destruction. Captain Brooks' competence questioned. Some historians have speculated that Brooks may have been negligent in his duties, either by ignoring warnings from the crew or by failing to take the necessary precautions in uncharted waters. The fact that he was one of the few survivors has led some to question his actions during the disaster. A ship of poor quality. Another theory is that the Tryal was poorly constructed or maintained, making it particularly vulnerable to damage when it struck the reef. Early 17th century ships were often built quickly to meet demand, and some lacked the structural integrity to withstand the rough conditions of long sea voyages. Legacy. The wreck of the Tryal remained largely forgotten for centuries, but modern archaeological expeditions have located parts of the ship and its cargo on the reef where it sank. The discovery of the Tryal wreck has provided valuable insight into the early history of European exploration in Australia and the dangers faced by sailors during this era. Today, the Tryal is recognised as a significant piece of Australia's maritime history. 3. The Anamaria. The Anamaria was a merchant vessel that disappeared mysteriously in the early 19th century while en route from Europe to the Caribbean. The ship's last known position was somewhere in the mid-Atlantic, but after that, no one ever heard from the Anamaria again. It was a routine voyage, with no indication of trouble before the ship vanished. Unlike many shipwrecks of the era, there were no reports of distress signals, and no debris or wreckage was ever found. The disappearance of the Anamaria shocked the maritime community at the time, as ships frequently sailed the same route without issue. Many theories emerged, but none could definitively explain what happened to the vessel and its crew. Theories. Pirate attack. Piracy was rampant in the Caribbean during the 19th century, and merchant ships like the Anamaria were prime targets. Pirates may have seized the ship, killed or captured the crew, and scuttled the vessel to cover their tracks. The absence of any wreckage could be explained by the possibility that the pirates deliberately sank the ship far from land, leaving no trace. Storms and rogue waves. The Atlantic is known for its fierce storms, and the Anamaria may have encountered a sudden hurricane or a rogue wave, a massive wave that appears without warning. Such events could have overwhelmed the ship quickly, leaving no time for the crew to send a distress signal or escape. Mutiny or human error. Some theorists speculate that a mutiny may have taken place aboard the Anamaria. The crew may have overthrown the captain and sailed the ship to an unknown location. Alternatively, human error, such as a navigational mistake or poor decision-making in the face of an approaching storm, could have led to the ship's loss. Legacy. The Anamaria's disappearance remains one of the countless maritime mysteries that continue to fascinate historians and researchers. Despite numerous theories, no definitive evidence has ever been found to explain the ship's fate, making it a symbol of the dangers of the open ocean and the many ships that have disappeared without a trace. 4. The J.C. Cousins. The J.C. Cousins was a steam schooner built for the Pacific timber trade in the late 19th century. She regularly sailed the Pacific coast of North America, transporting lumber and other goods from San Francisco to Puget Sound and back. The vessel was known for its sturdy construction and reliable performance, making her a staple of the regional trade routes. In 1883, the J.C. Cousins set off from San Francisco bound for Puget Sound with a cargo of lumber. However, she never arrived at her destination. There were no reports of bad weather at the time, and the ship had been well maintained. When she failed to arrive, a search was launched, but no trace of the ship or its crew was ever found. Theories. Collision with a floating log. The waters off the Pacific Northwest were, and still are, notorious for large floating logs that break free from logging operations. A sudden collision with one of these logs could have severely damaged the J.C. Cousins, possibly puncturing the hull or disabling the ship's propulsion. Given that the schooner was heavily laden with lumber, a collision of this nature might have caused her to sink quickly, with the crew unable to react in time. The absence of debris could be attributed to the strong ocean currents in the region, which may have carried away any remnants of the ship. Engine failure and foundering. Another plausible explanation is that the J.C. Cousins experienced a catastrophic engine failure while at sea. Without power, the ship would have been at the mercy of the currents and winds. In the event of a storm, the vessel could have been easily overwhelmed by the rough seas, causing her to capsize or founder. This theory is supported by the fact that the vessel was known to be heavily laden, which would have made her vulnerable to such conditions. Piracy or theft. Although less likely, the possibility of piracy or theft has been considered in the J.C. Cousins' disappearance. While piracy was not as common on the Pacific coast as in other parts of the world, it was not unheard of during this period. A pirate crew could have seized the vessel, taken its valuable cargo, and sunk the ship to cover their tracks. However, the lack of any historical record of pirate activity in the area at the time makes this theory more speculative. Legacy. The J.C. Cousins' disappearance is one of the many maritime mysteries that continue to intrigue historians and researchers. Despite extensive searches and numerous theories, no trace of the vessel has ever been found, leaving her fate a mystery. The incident is a reminder of the perils faced by ships in the Pacific Northwest during the 19th century, where even well-constructed and experienced vessels could vanish without a trace. 5. The Niña. The Niña was one of the 3 ships used by Christopher Columbus during his first voyage to the Americas in 1492. The smallest of the fleet, the Niña was a nimble caravel known for her speed and versatility. After the first voyage, the Niña continued to serve Columbus on subsequent journeys across the Atlantic, making several trips between the New World and Spain. However, after Columbus's final return to Spain, the fate of the Niña becomes shrouded in mystery. Historical records do not provide a clear account of what ultimately happened to the ship, leading to centuries of speculation about her demise. Theories. Sunk in a storm. One of the most widely accepted theories is that the Niña may have been lost in a storm during one of her many voyages between Spain and the Americas. The Atlantic Ocean was treacherous, and many ships of the era met their end in fierce storms. Given that Columbus's voyages continued into the early 16th century, it is possible that the Niña was caught in one of these storms and sank, her final resting place lost to history. Retired or sold. Another possibility is that the Niña was simply retired after years of service and either sold to private merchants or decommissioned. Ships of the time had relatively short lifespans, and after years of wear and tear, it is possible that the Niña was broken up for parts or repurposed for less demanding voyages. Over time, any documentation of her final fate may have been lost or destroyed. Piracy or privateering. Some historians suggest that the Niña may have fallen into the hands of pirates or privateers during one of her voyages. The Caribbean and the Atlantic were rife with piracy in the early 16th century, and ships like the Niña were prime targets. If pirates captured the ship, they may have used it for their own purposes before eventually abandoning or sinking it. Legacy. Despite the mystery surrounding her fate, the Niña remains an iconic symbol of the age of exploration. Her role in Columbus's voyages helped to reshape world history, and she is remembered as a testament to the daring and ambition of early European explorers. Replicas of the Niña have been built in modern times to commemorate her significance, and she remains a symbol of maritime history, even as the details of her final journey remain unknown. Conclusion. From the wreck of the sea venture that inadvertently founded Bermuda, to the mysterious disappearances of ships like the Anamaria and J.C. Cousins, these maritime stories serve as powerful reminders of the dangers that sailors faced when navigating uncharted waters. The fates of these vessels have remained shrouded in mystery, with theories ranging from natural disasters and human error to piracy and supernatural forces. Each ship holds a place in history, not only for its service but for the unanswered questions that surround its disappearance. Despite advances in maritime technology and navigation, the ocean remains a vast and unpredictable force, capable of claiming ships and leaving behind no trace. These stories remind us that even today, the sea holds many secrets, waiting to be uncovered. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed exploring these maritime mysteries, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on future content.